You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. And we've got the man himself, Dave Lapham, after the Bengals fall in a preseason game number one, 36-23 at Paycor Stadium. And Dave, let's, the first thing I think people are going to look at is the starters didn't play. Everybody else was kind of on the field. A lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties, something we didn't see a year ago. But for a couple guys, kind of a dream night, especially the local kid out of Loveland High School, Drew Plitt, who had a dream of a hometown kid going 6 for 6, 76 yards, and a touchdown pass.
Yeah, he had a perfect quarterback rating. Plitt to Pryor, that was a big deal. I mean, the two killer peas had themselves a big night. There's no question about it. But like you said, the football team was the least penalized team in the National Football League last year. Least penalty yards, no self-destruction, or very minimal self-destruction. Tonight, 11 penalties for over 100 yards. Arizona had 2 penalties for 20 yards. Bengals continually put themselves in a brutal down and distance situation. 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Therefore, it led to third down failures for them, 3rd down successes for the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, they dominated in that area. They dominated in the red zone. They scored 4 touchdowns their first 5 opportunities in the red zone. The Bengals struggled in the red zone. They didn't even get there. When they did, they didn't struggle. They didn't score. They struggled. They had to settle for field goal. The only other bright spot, McPherson, Money Mac is incredible. This kid, I mean, 56 yards, 58 yards. He just takes the same swing, whether he's trying to strike the ball from 25 yards or strike the ball from 50 or 60 yards. He takes the same swing at the football, and he gets the same trajectory, the immediate trajectory. He is just unbelievable, the weapon that he is. So, McPherson was a big plus, but really they self-destructed by penalty offensively and defensively. They had a 40-yard pass interference on the first drive of the game by the Arizona Cardinals that allowed them to help them score a touchdown. Well, I'll tell you, poor Moss. Moss had 2 holding penalties that cost Evans a 65-yard run and cost him a 5-yard touchdown run. So Evans' stats look terrible, but if Moss doesn't get called for 2 holding penalties, the kid's got himself a hell of a football game. So it was self-destruction. There's no 2 ways about it. That's all very correctable. And Arizona, though, I thought at the line of scrimmage where games are won and lost, that's where the rubber meets the road. In the trenches, like we always talk about on our podcast, it's called In the Trenches. That's where the games are decided. And I thought the Arizona Cardinals had the better of it at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, offensively and defensively. And Arizona didn't play their starters either. So it wasn't like the number 1s for Arizona going against the number 2s for the Bengals. Bottom line is the number 2s for the Arizona Cardinals and number 3s were better tonight than the Bengals' number 2s and number 3s.
Dave, Camp, the Bengals coming off the season they came off of, the penalties, that gives these coaches something to get fired up about when they get back on the field in practice. It has to. And we talked about the offensive line, the changes made, but the only starter we saw was Jackson Carman. And you get into, okay, we know when it gets to crunch time, there's going to be a different group out there along that offensive line. And I think, fans can't read too much into the night, but as you said, you start looking, we talked battles, key battles. Any thoughts on that battle at left guard when we talk Jackson Carman and Cordell Volson?
Well, I don't think either one put a stamp of sealing up the job at the left guard position. I don't think, and I guess again, it's a situation where you're going to have to study the tape because as a unit, the line didn't play very well, and a lot of times you can have one guy doing what he's supposed to do assignment-wise and getting it done, and if 2 or 3 other guys break down, the whole thing looks terrible. So don't want to make any rash judgments on a snap-by-snap basis of how guys played until you look at tape. But overall, the group, the unit, was nowhere near acceptable enough. There's no question about it. But I don't think that either guy said, okay, based on my performance in this football game, I'm the starting guard. So I think it's a battle that's gonna continue to rage, and we shall see. So it's certainly the consistency of play wasn't there for any member of the offensive line. Too many negative plays up and down the line of scrimmage, and it'd be great if all five guys have a terrible snap in unison. That's not the way it happens. Sometimes you're going to have a situation where four guys operating well, one's not. The next play, it's three other guys operating well, two other guys not getting their job done, and that's what was happening tonight. Everybody kind of took their turn. It was sprinkled up and down the line of scrimmage in terms of not operating at a high enough level of efficiency. So there's miles to go before they rest based off of this performance, and the coaches have plenty of things to correct. There's no two ways about it. The other thing is you lose the turnover battle, which they did, and you not only turn the football over, you turn it over at the 21-yard line. So you give the opposition a short field, and the defense didn't buckle down and hold them to a field goal. They let them pound it in for a touchdown, and so sudden change. They didn't handle that very well, and I think that's going to be a disappointing thing for the coaching staff because all training camp they've worked on situational football. They have competitions between offense and defense in the red zone, low red zone, third down, sudden change. I mean, they cover everything, and just about every situational scenario tonight, they came out in the short end of it for the most part. So they'll just keep grinding and keep working. So they definitely get nowhere to go but up. Let's put it that way.
Let's stay on offense real quick and talk the wide receiver position. We've talked several times during a couple different podcasts we've done, live stream questions about the receiver. We've stressed it's going to be about being on special teams, but you have to be impressed with what Kendric Pryor did, 4 catches, 89 yards, and the touchdown. But at the same time, Trent Taylor just keeps catching footballs.
Trent Taylor is a pro's pro. I mean, he understands how to survive in the National Football League. He does not waste snaps. He gives maximum effort every single snap, whether it's, trying to crack down and block a defensive end or an outside linebacker, or it's running a route, catching a football, or it's returning a punt, or it's covering a punt, whatever it is. This guy is a football player, plain and simple. And I got an immense amount of respect for him. But I'll tell you, Pryor, that one-handed catch he made was extraordinary. And, I had a chance to interview him in the locker room in the postgame show, and he did the same thing that Taylor's been doing for a longer period of time. It's a short sample size for Pryor, but he took advantage of every opportunity that presented itself to him. And I said, what traits make you the receiver you are? And he rattled off about 5 or 6 things. So he's got an earned confidence. And this kid played at Wisconsin, and that's not a school that's known for airing it out. It's a school that's known for ground and pound. So, he's physical blocker as well. And he and Lassiter, and I mean, there's guys that are fighting their tails off to make the football team. And, I was very impressed with Dax Hill real quickly as well. I thought his speed showed up and his hitting ability, separating people from the football. And he did some good things out there tonight as well. So Jeffrey Gunter off the edge, I thought was very, very noticeable. He had very excellent first step quickness. Even though he's a rangy guy, he comes off the football with his pad level low like an arrow coming out of a bow with that straight back. And man, he's making moves as he's working his way up the football field, and he gave him some very consistent snaps. So it's not like it was a total washout. There were guys that did have good moments, good performances, and that's what life is like in the preseason in the National Football League. Everybody's trying to show what they can do, even in bad situations. That's when I respect Pryor for putting all of it out of his mind, to get the score, to get everything that's going on. I'm going out there and I'm getting my snaps. I'm going to execute. I'm going to try to get in a rhythm as quickly as I can with Plitt, who I haven't really had that much time to establish a rhythm with. Boy, they made some plays, and that's what it's all about. You got to respect a kid that was focused and totally ready to take advantage of an opportunity that presented itself. You got to give him a lot of credit.
You had talked about being excited to see what Jeffrey Gunner would bring to the field, but another guy you talked about was Zach Carter, and he showed up as well.
He did. Zach Carter's a disruptive guy. Another one that, that first step quickness is a big trait. When you have that ability to win on that first step off the line of scrimmage, man, that's a very, very big plus to have. And this kid is a disruptive kid. He can make himself small when he wants to too. He's got a unique talent and ability to do that. I think that he's a guy that definitely is going to make some plays for this football team. He's going to be a factor as the season unfolds. In my mind, there's no question.
You talked about the night McPherson had. The other part of special teams that we kind of talked about a main battle being was at the punter position with Kevin Huber and Drew Chrisman, and also at long snapper. And the thing about the whole thing with McPherson was we saw all four of those guys take the field and have success.
Exactly. There was no blood drawn as far as that goes tonight. And I thought Kevin Huber had the best punt of the night, where he got some great hang time and directional kick, and that's his forte. That's what Chrisman's trying to get better at, is the directional punting with hang time. And I didn't think he had his best night. But again, I think that this is just the beginning. I do think that there's going to be a very interesting battle unfold here in the next couple of weeks. There's big time jobs in the line. There's no doubt about it. And, that was another area in the early stages of the football game when the Bengals got off to a slow start. Is they allowed the Arizona Cardinals like a 40-yard punt return that gave them a short field. So every phase of tonight's game, all three phases, offense, defense, special teams, had their moments that were forgettable. There's no question about it. And the one thing that I think probably is a little bit bothersome to Zach Taylor and the coaching staff is they've been very, very reasonable with the players in terms of not beating them up, not grinding them in the early stages of training camp here. And to come out and to not perform, they weren't as ready to take the field and get after it as the Arizona Cardinals were. And that's going to be a little bit disappointing. So to me, it's not like, back in the day, Forrest Gregg would kill us. We would go to practice, our first full practice, he would beat us to death. I don't think Zach Taylor's going to do that, but I think he's definitely going to have a talk with his football team and lay out, look, if I'm going to take care of you and keep you guys fresh and not beat you up, and you have to one hand has to wash the other here. You have to show up for me on game day. It's not a square deal. I'm doing all the giving, you guys are doing all the taking. Give me a little bit. So I thought that the effort, in the early stages of the football game left something to be desired. And that's kind of surprising because, it's guys fighting for their NFL jobs, and I don't know, I guess when you face adversity, you face a negative start to a football game, there's two ways you can go. You can let it continue, or you can fight through the adversity. And they let it continue a little bit too long tonight and dug themselves too deep a hole. So I'm sure Zach's going to have a conversation about that.
All right, we just finished that game. You've got the Bengals traveling to MetLife Stadium next Sunday, the 21st of August, to take on the Giants. What do you hope to see improvement-wise, or what do you hope to see be different when they get to the MetLife Stadium and take on the Giants?
Just better execution. The Giants just beat the Patriots in Foxborough. So, that's saying something. You can't, every team in the National Football League is good enough to beat you. You can't help them. You can't make it easier for them. And that's what the Bengals did tonight. The Bengals made it a hell of a lot easier for the Arizona Cardinals to beat them. And if they do the same thing and, self-destruct by penalty, self-destruct by assignment problems, self-destruct by, real poor hand placement, bad technique. And, those are the things you just can't have. You have to know, who to block. You have to know how to get there. You have to know what to do when you get there. And, you have to know where to be. That's the first and foremost. I mean, it's that simple. In the triple A's, alignment, assignment, adjustment, and just play a much sounder football game in terms of the mental approach. And, again, make them beat you. Don't make it easier for them, and see how the chips fall. But I don't think the ones are going to play. If they do, I don't think they're going to play very long. I wonder if tonight's performance might change if Zach Taylor were thinking, I'm going to go through the preseason and I'm not going to play my starters at all. The only two starters, quote, starters that they released on the press release for this preseason game, Jackson Carman, starter at left guard, and Dax Hill, starter at safety. Those are the only two starters that played. So 20 of the 22 starters didn't play. Will that continue? Based on what took place, I wonder if Zach will change his mind. I don't think he will, but in my mind, it's going to boil down to when they line up against the Arizona Cardinals for those controlled practices. I think that's going to be the barometer to how ready they are to start the season. And if they don't do well against the Arizona Cardinals in those situations that we're talking about in those 2 days of practice, I think we may see them line up against the LA Rams when they have the controlled practices for 2 days before the game with the Rams. If they don't do well in those two practices, I think we're going to see them maybe play a little bit in that third preseason game. I think that'll be a big barometer. So it'll be interesting to see as the preseason unfolds here, how the coaches, if they do make any strategic changes in that regard or not.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. If you're ready to jumpstart your career, get the highest salary plus commission in the industry, be sure to check out firststarlogistics.com. Dave, you get in this time of a year, and people, the teams that won, fans get excited. Teams that lost, people scratch their head and said, what happened? But I mean, it's still preseason game number one. We have a long way to go. Can't get too high, can't get too low after our first preseason game, but big expectations. The fans showed up for this preseason game, maybe unlike ever before.
Yeah, and I think that you can't lose your mind over a preseason game. I agree with you, particularly the first preseason game. I mentioned during the broadcast that the Bengals gave up the number of points they gave up tonight only 3 times last year in 21 regular season and postseason games. So it was an anomaly. But that doesn't mean the coaches aren't upset about it. That's for sure. They're definitely upset about it. There's no two ways about that. So I do expect better performances. And what was the best thing of the night, though, Dave? Joe Burrow ran them. Joe Burrow was out there running gassers with his teammates. The only thing that the number ones did, the starters did, the 20 guys that didn't and injured guys that could run were out there doing the same thing. They probably had around 30 guys that didn't even participate in tonight's game because of injury or, coaches deciding to let them rest. And Joe Burrow was one of them. So all those guys before the game were out there in warm-ups, and they were running gassers across the field, 53-yard sprints, out and back, down and back. And Joe Burrow was right there with them. He was running and running pretty damn well. And then when the quarterbacks were warming up with each other, the 3 quarterbacks and Dan Pitcher, the quarterback position coach who we had on our podcast many times, the 4 of them were warming up. Pitcher was catching the ball for Joe Burrow. Joe was throwing, and he looked pretty damn good. I mean, he had something on the football. He wasn't torquing, like a wild man. He wasn't trying to throw the ball through anybody. But I was very impressed. His energy level is coming back. I think on a day-by-day basis, he's much stronger. He looks to be improving physically on a daily basis. I was impressed by what I saw tonight. Now, does that mean that he's going to practice next week? No, I'm not saying that, but he is coming along, and we know he's a quick healer. And the one thing that Joe's trying to work on right now is he lost that muscle mass that he worked so hard to put on. Joe was looking unbelievable, man. I mean, he was fast, and he'd put good weight on his frame. And with that surgery, we're talking about an operation where they took an organ out of his body, for crying out loud. And the recovery was difficult. And he's got to work hard to get that mass back. But I think that's gonna be a process that he'll handle as well. But watching him throw tonight, I was like, son of a gun, look at this guy. Here he comes. I would not be shocked if I'm not going to say he's going to play it all during the preseason, but I would not be shocked if he practices for 2 weeks, before they have to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Joe Burrow it's good to see him out in the football field doing things instead of running gassers by riding a golf cart. Watching him run gassers with his teammates was great. And then watching him throw the football the way he did was even better. To me, that was bigger than that was a bigger win than the loss was tonight, to see Joe Burrow coming along like he came along tonight.
As you and his father Jimmy Burrow talked about in a recent episode of In the Trenches, Jimmy didn't want to get into too much detail of what actually took place, but the conversation, as you said, Joe has proven to be a fast healer. Dave, we're going to let you go. You've had a long day, and we appreciate you taking the time. We hope everybody enjoys this episode of In the Trenches, talking about the Bengals' loss in preseason game number 1. Do us a favor. Please subscribe to the channel In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. Also hit the like button. That helps us get the algorithm going, and more people will discover what Dave's been doing for a little over a year and a half now, and with a lot of growth, but we still have a long way to go. Again, we want to thank everybody at First Star Logistics for everything they do for us in bringing this podcast, video cast to you. And we'll hope you have a great weekend. Dave, it's like we said, next week we'll see what happens in the second preseason game as the defending AFC champions look to kind of put tonight behind them.
Yeah, that's a fact. But like I said, watching Joe Burrow do what he did, and seeing that the patience that the franchise exercised on his behalf in terms of not rushing him back, making sure that everything was taken care of and it wasn't going to be septic. You don't want that infection. You don't want anything close to being septic. I think it's going to pay off. And I think from what I saw tonight, I'd be surprised if Joe Burrow weren't able to make the dance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's what it's all about. I don't give a damn about these preseason games on Joe Burrow for the Pittsburgh Steelers, though, at Paycor Stadium. That'll be big.
For Dave Lapham, I'm Dave Burke. Thank you, everybody.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.